They ignored me in meetings, skipped my name in emails, and talked over me like I wasn't even there. What they didn't know was this: the moment I finally spoke, everything they built was about to change. My name is Daniel. And for 3 years at that company, I wasn't invisible because I was quiet. I was invisible because they wanted me to be. I joined that company full of hope. It was a new role, a big office, glass walls everywhere, and the promise of growth. On my very first day, my manager shook my hand and said, "Speak up anytime. We value ideas here." At the time, I believed him. At first, the disrespect was subtle. I would suggest an idea during a meeting, and the room would go quiet. No reaction, no response. 10 minutes later, someone else would repeat the same idea, and suddenly, it was called brilliant. People nodded. My manager smiled. I sat there questioning whether I had imagined speaking at all. Weeks turned into months. Emails I sent went unanswered. Decisions were made without including me. Projects I worked on quietly were presented by others as if I had never existed. I told myself to stay patient, to keep my head down, and to work harder. I believed that eventually, someone would notice. They never did. What they noticed was the work, not the person behind it. Late nights became normal. Weekends disappeared. I fixed problems before they exploded and cleaned up messes no one wanted their name attached to. And every time credit vanished, I stayed silent. At home, I stopped talking about work. It was easier to say everything's fine than to explain how humiliating it feels to be invisible in a room full of people. The worst part wasn't anger or hatred, it was indifference. They didn't dislike me. They simply didn't think I mattered. Then came the meeting that changed everything. A major client was threatening to walk away. Revenue, reputation, and jobs were all at risk. The conference room was packed with executives, managers, and directors. I sat at the far end of the table, already prepared to disappear like always. People talked, they argued, they blamed each other. Bad ideas piled on top of worse ones. And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel afraid. I felt angry because I knew exactly what the problem was. I had flagged it months ago, professionally, clearly, and repeatedly. My heart started pounding. I told myself that if I spoke and they ignored me again, this job was over. The room fell silent for a moment, and without planning it, I spoke. "Can I say something?" Every head turned. Some looked surprised. Others looked annoyed. My manager hesitated, then nodded. I stood up, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. I explained the real issue, not opinions or theories, facts. Showed where the failure started, why the client was angry, and exactly how to fix it within 48 hours. No ego, no drama, just the truth. When I finished, the room went quiet again, longer this time. Then the client's director asked, "Why hasn't anyone mentioned this before?" I didn't answer. My manager cleared his throat and said, "We may have overlooked it." That was the moment everything shifted. There was no applause and no celebration. But there was something far more powerful: recognition. The fix worked. The client stayed. Emails started coming with my name included. Meetings suddenly needed my input. People who had never looked at me before began asking, "What do you think?" A week later, my manager pulled me aside and said, "You should have spoken up sooner." I smiled because we both knew the truth. I had spoken many times before. They just hadn't listened until it mattered to them. I didn't become louder after that. I didn't change who I was. I simply learned one thing. Silence may protect peace, but your voice is what changes power. They ignored me for years. And it only took one moment, one sentence to remind them that I was never invisible. They just chose not to see me.